You're listening to Wrestling Changed My Life, presented by Spartan Combat. Let's go.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestle, because if you wrestle, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Welcome back to the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast, folks. This is your host, Ryan Warner. Today we have a Fargo update. Fargo's going on right now in the Fargo Dome. 16U got started on Saturday, and then the juniors got started yesterday. There have been some insane matchups, crazy upsets. I'm sad to say that Team Illinois is not doing that well in the 16U tournament. We only have one finalist, but I am amazed at how good Valiant Prep, a high school out of Arizona, is doing. They have 3 in the 16U finals. Eric Larkin's son is looking phenomenal. So a lot of fun watching the 16U tournament. And the juniors, like I said, they got started yesterday. Some of the brackets in the junior division have over 200 some wrestlers in it. It's absolute bananas. So today I brought on DJ Bruce. He was at Fargo yesterday, just got back home to Ohio. He's a he owns a wrestling academy out in Ohio. And he was on the floor yesterday, so I brought DJ on the podcast to give us a Fargo update. DJ's initially from Illinois. We grew up together. He wrestled at Virginia Tech, and now, as they said, doing great things in the youth community out in Columbus with his academy, DJ Bruce trained. So tune in for this one to get all updates. Fargo, we also talk about the Olympics a little bit. Enjoy it, folks. Fan of the week goes to my man, Brandon James Evans. Brandon just placed a merch order, took a picture of it, and threw it on Instagram. So we love you for that, Brandon. Go to Wrestling Changed My Life on Instagram to see Brandon in his Wrestling Changed My Life merch. As always, folks, this podcast is proudly presented by Spartan Combat. One of Spartan Combat's pro athletes, Kyle Dake, is going to be competing at the Olympics in just a few weeks here. I can't believe how close it is. If you want to support Kyle Dake at the Olympics, go to SpartanCombat.com and purchase your Kyle Dake t-shirt. That's it, folks. Let's get to the show with DJ Bruce. DJ Bruce, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. It's like I said, I've been talking to you more lately than it has in the last few decades, and I love it.
Me too, man. I remember, knowing you from the youth circuits all the way through the high school circuit. So it's great to reconnect with you now in our older years. So you're based, you're from Illinois, an Illinois guy, living out in Ohio. You have a wrestling academy going on now. It's a nonprofit called DB Train, and you have some exciting news. So we'll just turn the floor over to you, my brother.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny because I just sent out an email to our parents today, and today's a day 117, right? So we've been around 117 days, but the latest exciting news that we get to share is Mikey Benefield. So Illinois Hammer, Illinois legend, national champ in his own right, won pretty much any and every tournament you can think of, dating back to when we were youth kids all the way up through college. But he's joining DBT. So he's going to join. He's going to take over as the president of our board of directors. And we're just so happy to have him a part of what we're doing. And it's definitely, we're all going to be better because of it. And so I'm excited to share the news with you first.
That's awesome, man. For folks who don't know the name Mikey Benefield, just speak to what kind of a wrecking ball that dude was back in high school, man.
It's a love-hate thing for me because he's my best friend in the whole world. That kid's my brother. So bragging about him, I don't really like to do. But I mean, it's kind of like one of those things. What do you say? He's won everything. Going back to cadets, I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a two-time Fargo champ at cadet. Won it as a junior, won it in universities, won a D3 national title. He was number one recruit in the country in our class in '07. Number one kid, I'm pretty sure, since we were, like I said, I remember him winning the Triple Crown for the first time. When we were having all those Eagles, so all the way back to Tulsa, Reno, the Kickoff Classic, everything. And so when you have somebody that's won that much, I mean, how can you not get better? And like I said, he's also my best friend. He's my brother. So any time that I get to spend with him is great. And the more he's around these kids, the better we'll all be. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I mean, 4-time Illinois state champ, which is a rarity. And you got to understand, folks, as a kid, he was like a 4-time kid state champ, only lost in 7th grade. I'll never forget it. I believe it was to Aaron Winger.
Yeah. Winnie, don't let him forget that, because it's funny enough. 7th grade is the one state title that I won, right? I lost the rest of them. Long history to take it second, but it's the one he doesn't have, and I like to remind him. 7th grade, people don't forget.
No, they don't. And we're talking about the youth days, the kids circuits, but man, this weekend Fargo got kicked off. You were just there. What was the energy like from the Fargo Dome?
I think after last year and Fargo getting shut down, just everybody was just so happy to be back at it, right? Like there were just so many familiar faces and just there were so many people that were just there, like to be around that environment again, because, it's one of those things, like if Fargo's every year, like, they're celebrating the 50th year of Fargo. So you wouldn't think that, that goes away. And then, the pandemic happened and everything shut down. Rightfully so, but all of a sudden that gets taken away, and you just forget how many kids get opportunities at Fargo. Like for me, like I lived it. My freshman year, I was relatively unheard of, and I beat Cody Gardner, and that's how I met Kevin Dresser and Daryl Weber, and that's how I ended up getting a full ride to Virginia Tech off of Fargo. Right. And there's so many kids that for whatever reason didn't put it together for their folk style year, but go out to Fargo, you beat a couple good kids, and then your name's at the top of the rankings just off of a weekend that you got in North Dakota. So just having those opportunities back and just being able to compete against the best kids in the country, there's nothing like it, man. And I hadn't been back in a decade. And last time I was there was my junior year of high school as a competitor. So going back with kids of your own, it's a weird feeling, but it just felt like home, right? Like I feel like everybody, when you pull up to the Fargo Dome, the feeling's the same. There's nerves, there's excitement, you just know there's just going to be good wrestling, and it's exciting to be around.
Yeah, I'm getting excited just hearing you talk about it. And as I watch some of these upsets, the 16U division, which I love that they've done away with cadets and just call it 16U. It's a lot easier to understand. 16 and under, right? But there you really get some guys coming on who maybe aren't in the rankings because they're 8th graders coming in, or they're under the radar a little bit. I saw this team out of Arizona, Valiant Prep, which is led by Angel Cejudo, Eric Larkin's in there coaching. Eric Larkin's son just tech-falled Mason Gibson. I'm like, what in the hell?
By the way, you couldn't get close to that map, right? I don't remember the last time that I've seen that many people surrounding a mat to watch. And I mean, I think they're both in 8th grade.
I think they're both in 8th grade. Yeah.
So for me, it's like, I'm like willfully ignorant, right? Like I've been around the sport a long time, but I don't pay attention to names and rankings because it doesn't matter. You got to beat the kid in front of you, right? But something special was happening when that match was happening. Like as they were warming up, people were surrounding the mat. So everybody just kind of headed over there because I didn't know what it was. And then they're like, oh, you don't understand. Like these two are the future. Like, but I guess like the kid from PA, Mason, apparently he's very, like willfully so, he should be, right? He's won everything.
Yeah.
And then all gets on top, locks up a lace, game over.
Text him. Woo.
It was, I'm telling you, that environment, it's like, when the lights go down and they run out in D1 Nationals, like I think of like in St. Louis, like when the lights go down and you got the two corners running out and the music's playing, and it's just, you can't, like, unless you're there, it just doesn't come across on TV. They do a lot that's great with the environment, but being in that environment, seeing that match, seeing how many people were excited to watch two 8th graders,
Yeah.
2 grade wrestlers compete, and it's a high level, right? Like it's high level wrestling. It's not like, what some people might think 8th grade wrestling was. Like that's like wrestling at the highest level, and it was awesome. And just the energy you get from that, it's special to be around.
Yeah, and I'm with you, man. If it wasn't for Intermat and a couple people I follow on Twitter, I would have no idea who these kids are. But the Intermat does such a good job of breaking it down, and so does Flo. But Intermat really knows these like 8th graders. But even this Larkin kid, the son of the great Eric Larkin, who was a Hodge winner, he wasn't even ranked on. He wasn't even on any of these rankings. And he tacked them. So it's like. And this school in Arizona, it's called Valiant Prep. It's a private school. It's not part of the Arizona High School League, but these guys are trying to make like a wrestling charter school and travel to all the big tournaments. Valiant Prep has 3 wrestlers in the 16U finals. Illinois has 1. So one high school from Arizona has more finalists than the great state of Illinois, which hurts me on many levels, but also gets me excited for what those guys are doing in Arizona.
That's the thing, man. Is like what I found out is it just takes just a few people that just want to do it. Like I just look at like us, man. Like obviously we don't have 3 kids in the national finals, so like hats off to them. But for us, we got started off of COVID, right? Just so many kids didn't have opportunities because COVID, took away their season, or COVID had numbers down to financially. It just didn't make sense for programs to operate the way that they used to, and. I was just like, all right, well, let's see how it's going to go. And just the idea of I'm going to try it. We had 2 All-Americans, 3 kids that qualified, five kids in total on the national team. Again, 100 days ago, we didn't exist. Right. And it takes a little bit of just obviously a lot of hard work, but just an idea to spark it off. And it doesn't matter where you are, because again, everybody's willing to travel and you can go find the competition. But if you got one person that knows what's happening and you got a couple kids that want to work hard, man, something special can happen. And you hear stuff like that in Arizona. Like, but I look back like, man, when we were coming up, Cejudo was in Arizona, right? Yeah. Like coming out, there's brother, obviously he's a stud as well. But Arizona had a couple studs, man, and it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter where you're from. All you need to work hard and something special might happen. And the best part is at Fargo, you get to go prove it. You got kids from all over the country. I remember we had kids from Alaska, All-American and do well. Like, that's the thing. Like, wrestling's beautiful. It doesn't matter your size, shape, or location. It doesn't matter rich, poor, white, brown, yellow, purple, big, small. It doesn't matter. Right? If you want to get after it, you put the work in, special things can happen. And that's why I love this sport so much, man.
Amen. Now, when you were going to Fargo, do you remember them doing the bracket system like they're doing now? Because when I went, it was a pool.
Pool, right? We used to do pools. And it was crazy because I saw somebody, like I was looking at a bracket and my kids were in a 128-man bracket, which like blows my mind. Like, okay. There was a kid in a round of 256.
Yeah.
I was just like,
I love that they're doing it like this, though.
I love it too, except what happens when you lose first round and you got to wrestle back in a bracket of 250?
Bro.
Like, how many matches is that? Like, is that even possible with match limits?
So I went to the junior, like a good junior weight where I know they'd have those 256 rounds. It was like 9 matches or 8 matches just to get to the quarters. And they're just hammering them out every 40 minutes, man.
Yep. And you know what, though? It's good because, like, you go prove you're the best in the country. You want to be in the go wrestle 128 of your peers, right? And go win it. And, like, when you do, but, like, that's the whole thing is, like, the kids, like, winning it's awesome. Being in the finals is awesome. But, like, give me the kid that lost first round that battled back to 5th, right? Like, the kid in the trenches that, like, that's the kid that I want, right? Because the kid that's just like, all right, didn't go as planned. I got to figure it out. Head back down, back to work. Right? Just chopping wood, man. Those are, but again, you can earn a scholarship that way, right? You could beat some kids at Fargo that, like, there's kids that didn't qualify or weren't starters that go beat state champs because, as you know, not all state titles are created equal. Right? You state qualifier from Illinois. Look at Joe Rao.
I was just gonna say Joe Rao. He won it.
Fargo and he didn't qualify. And I love Joe, like, absolute hammer, but like, that's not uncommon. And like, that's what I love about Fargo, because it could just be your weekend. You could be unranked and go beat the kid that everybody's hyping up in 8th grade.
I know. I'm getting some serious FOMO, man. And my girlfriend's like, are you really caring about a high school tournament. I'm like, normally I'm not that into Fargo, but as of late, I love how the coverage of the middle school and the high school is just through the roof. So you don't even have to follow it to get some good perspective. But two, there's something about this bracket system where it's just a huge double elimination bracket kind of heading towards the finals. Whereas the pool, I always thought it was kind of hard to follow with the black marks and like the point system, but it's black and white now. And like, you just follow the bracket through. The question I have for you is, are they seeding this or is it just random draw?
Random draw. Because I know like
Wow.
my kid's Jake Taylor, Jake's a stud, man. He's a stud in his own right. That kid's going to be special. But out the gate, we caught a state champ out of Minnesota. And like here, like that's how it goes. To be the man, you got to beat the man, go get it. Right. Yeah. He's an 8 looking up at his freshman year. This kid wins a state title in Minnesota as a freshman. It's like, good. That's the kid we came here to beat, right? You want to be a national champ. There it is. Right. Didn't go our way, but it's also now you felt it. Right. As he's heading into his freshman year, now you know what that looks like. Mm-hmm. There are kids when it as freshmen, you just felt it. And that kid's not as good as you thought he was. Right. And that's like the biggest thing, like for me, that I try to instill in my kids. Like when we came up, like, yeah, you might know of a kid because you got like USA Wrestling Magazine or Amateur Wrestling News and you saw he was ranked. Like, all right. But like now it's like you hop on Twitter, you hop on Flow, you hop on Track. Like I pull up everything of all these kids. And, it's very well documented. But with that comes a lot of hype. And again, Arizona, if he would have believed in the hype, he wouldn't have stepped on the mat. But he just decided I'm the man and went and teched him.
Bro,
guess what? I wakes up at the end of Fargo, it'll be number 1 in the country.
Oh, yeah.
Bet there'll be him. But that's what's beautiful about it, because it doesn't matter what you did. You can go earn it. And to your point, the way the bracket systems are, you got to go earn it, because you could do well with 4 matches, but then you lose 2 in a row. And guess what? You didn't place.
Done. Not even in like the round of 32. Like,
you're not even the blood round. You're not even sniffing the blood round.
No.
Like I'm going to go back and look. I'm going to look at that bracket at 256. And I want to see a kid that lost in the first round. How many matches is his path back to third? I bet there's somebody that loses first round that comes all the way back. And
gotta be. I mean, there's a couple. I don't know how many of those brackets there are where they have the round of 256, but to your point, I saw Duran Wynn tweeting. He's like, how in the heck is my kid wrestling in this round? Like, I didn't know that was a round. And after that, it's like, I don't even know what the next round will be after 256. I don't know if it keeps doubling or what, but it's just crazy to see all these kids going out there scrapping. And like, it's fun to talk about these super elite kids, but I was a kid who went out there scared to death, went 1-2, didn't know what I was doing, but just remember afterwards being so proud to represent Team Illinois and just being so excited that you're now part of this kind of this summer national fraternity of wrestlers. And it's just like, I'm getting chills because going across the country to wrestle the best kids from every state, it's like a rite of passage, man. And not even the tournament, but the training camp leading up to it was what was tough for me.
Illinois, spending a week down there, that bus ride after the last sleeping on the floor. Like, but that's the whole thing is like, it's so special to me because like I look back and like the stories that like come up from that have nothing to do with wrestling, right? Like most of my best friends are kids I came up wrestling with, and like we have so many stories about just junior duels or like cadet duels or whatever we're doing, and it's like, yeah, wrestling's important, and yeah, like we were there to win, but like all the things we talk about now had nothing to do with the sport, had everything to do with everything else. But like you're right, it's like it's a fraternity, man. It's a brotherhood that's just. It's hard to explain if you've never been a part of it, but if you're a part of it, you get it. And it doesn't matter if you're a national champ or if you're a kid that went 0-2, because at the end of the day, if you went through the grind, like you earned your spot there, you deserve it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's just a cool thing. And just, I remember pulling into town and seeing kids running up and down the streets of Fargo in the middle of summer in sweatpants. I'm like, God, this is a wrestling city for the next week. And it was just cool to be a part of. So I'm going to try and go next year, maybe for like today, next year, where you got the cadet finals, you got the junior quarters and semis going on. So, so how many guys did you say you had out there?
So we had 3 kids on the team. We ended up cadet 16U. We had the one Jake that I was out there with. But then we had 2 kids at 14U. We had 2 All-Americans in Wisconsin.
Nice.
Alex Taylor, shout out to him. Shout out Matt Gregory. Showing up winning matches. But what's cool about like our setup is like all of our core is young, like, right. They're all 7th and 8th graders. But like they're kids that show up ready to work. Like, and there's a lot to be excited about of what we got going on. But I do have to pause and go back because you said Duran win, and Duran. It's funny because like I used to scrap with Duran, and like me, Scott Penny, Duran were got pretty close when we were younger. Um, but Duran, he's actually so obviously he fights in the UFC, but he's got a big fight coming up, fighting out Phil Haas, who I'm not a fan of. He's actually the one that tore my ACL and ended my wrestling career. So I just wanted to go back and give Duran a shout out as all the DB trained is rooting for you, bud.
Let's go.
I'll be wearing one of his walkout tees and hopefully watch him smash Phil Haas. And but yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't go out and just give Duran a shout out.
Respect. I mean, that's another team. I mean, Team California, they look like they run a roll. You got Daniel Cormier walking around in people's corner.
Like, here's the thing. Is like Daniel Cormier could do whatever he wants, right? He's two-weight UFC champion. I'm sure he's got more than enough money at this point. And he just loves the sport of wrestling to where he built his own facility. And what they're doing at Gilroy, like, again, there's no reason for Daniel Cormier to be a head wrestling coach in high school, except for the fact he loves it. And there's just so many people. And it's not even just about him. It's about how many people he brings around to provide opportunities for these athletes. And like, that's the stuff that excites me. Because like do whatever he wants, chooses to do this. And that's how you know it's pure. And like when you see something like that at that high a level, it's just like, just shows you what's possible. And again, it's just one person with an idea that decided he wants to do different. And all those kids, I just think about like, it's cool that he's going to have state champs and national champs and all of that. But like, how many kids has he taken that wouldn't have an opportunity to go to college that'll be first generation college graduate?
A lot. Yeah.
Stuff like that excites me, man. And to see him do it just lets us know that like, you know, you're on the right path.
Well, what it scares me because I went to college in California and I've known a lot of Californians who are excellent college wrestlers. And I'd ask them, like, when did you start wrestling? Like, oh, my sophomore year in high school, my freshman year in high school. So all these California studs are now going to be starting earlier because of guys like DC. And I know there's tons of clubs out there, the Terrapellis, there's, you know, Poway down in San Diego. But dude, I'm telling you, I've never met more good college wrestlers in my life from California who never wrestled before freshman year, knowing that you know what I mean? It's like, what the hell?
It's changing. So like, it's funny you mentioned San Diego. So I actually just was out there and did a camp for UTB. So shout out my guy, Justin, and all the special things they're doing in San Diego. But yeah, they're just like, man, when I was out there, like most of the class were like 8, 9, 10 years old. And like the thing that's awesome about California is a lot of places, they just mix it up with mixed martial arts. So you got kids that are wrestling, doing jujitsu. Right. And it's like, that kid's 8 years old and he's hitting flying arm bars. Like, what is happening? Like when I was 8 years old, I was playing in the mud. Like, I was like, you know, these kids, and just, it's not even about like training to compete, but like body control, you know, and like just having just that functionality. And then also they love it. So like to them, like it just, that's what they like to do. And the state of California, there's so many people, you can't but have talent. You know, and just, again, it's all about opportunity. And just like Stanford and the way that the community came together.
Oh, thank God.
Like, but like, I'm just hoping we do it again with Fresno State because the Valley and how much talent's there. And again, the thing that I love about the wrestling community is don't tell us we can't. Right? Like, okay, like Stanford's like, all right, you're cutting us because of money. All right, how much? Okay, you need 7 million. Cool, here's 12.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Down now, like all right, we can call bullshit is bullshit because it's not about money, because it was never about money. Just like Fresno State's not about money. You just brought that program back. It's going to cost more money to disable that program and pay out all the buyouts. And what do you do with the facility? What do you do with all of that? Like,
all
it's
the
not
mats. Like, what happens to all that stuff?
Dude, we saw it happen with ODU. Like, but that's the beautiful thing about the sport is that you don't have to be actively involved in the sport to be a wrestler. And there's so many people that are beyond the sport now that see an injustice happening that come back to fight. And that's what it takes, because it takes everybody. And I really hope that we can figure out a way to make Fresno State remain viable, because there's so much talent just in San Diego. And like, if you think about it, you have Fresno State, and then you have all the opportunities you have down in Southern California, and then you have Stanford. And it's not even about Stanford, the program, the RTC that they're going to have there, and all the Cole with all of his connections he's bringing from 30 years at Cornell.
Bro.
Plus look at the talent that they brought on there, like Chenzo. Like, what?
Yeah.
And what's great is like, it's like the more that California gets better, it forces everybody to get better. Because again, we all meet up at Fargo every year. We all meet out in Vegas. We all meet out at the USA Wrestling Open, the trials, and just forces the whole sport to elevate, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. And it's good to see people coming back together. I mean, and right now it's such a hot time because we got the 16U Cadet World Championships going on right now. There's this kid who I've heard about for about a couple months, Bo Bassett. Do you know this kid?
So I've seen like the hype.
Bro,
14.
Seventh grade. How is he on the team? It's a 16U tournament. He's probably been held back. I'm sure of it. But
even if he did, but here's the thing. Like at the end of the day, like that's what I like about freestyle is it's not about freshman, sophomore, whatever. It's 16U. Like in Fargo, like somebody like was telling me about it. They said that his parents had to petition to to sign some waiver so he could compete because he's literally too young. It's supposed to be from like, I think 15 to 17 is like 16U is how it works out. Okay. Right. He's truly 14 and they had to sign a waiver to get in, which I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like it's true.
We're rolling with it. We like it.
Which is amazing. Right. And there's so much talent. And like you look like another plug for my guy, Jake out of Alabama. Like you got a kid from Alabama that's on the national team in Budapest. Like what? But that's where wrestling is. It just doesn't matter where you are. You can be from small town Alabama and you can go make and represent USA. Mm-hmm. And they're doing it, right? And that's the whole thing is we're talking Arizona, California, Alabama, Georgia, like Kansas, like it. There's literally the hotbed of wrestling is everywhere. It's in the country. There's talent everywhere, and it's great to see.
It's crazy that the level of there's levels and everything. We're talking about these studs at Fargo. The crazy thing is that the 6 or 7 wrestlers who are over in Budapest right now on the 16U World Team, they'd probably tech all those dudes at Fargo. Like Bo Bassett teched his way to that team.
I would imagine the kids that are in Budapest would have won all their weights.
Yeah.
Or like at least be in the finals or be in discussion of it. And if it didn't happen that way, it'd be an upset. That's like, I wish that I wish they would be able to time it to do both. Right. Mm-hmm. Like I'm just grateful that both events are happening and there's all these opportunities for all these kids. And 2, like, think about like all those kids, like to your point, like those kids probably would have won those weights, but think about all the opportunities are going to come from the kids that win Fargo because that kid's in Budapest. So you go win a world title, be a world champ, let that kid be a national champ and you both get full rides. Everybody wins.
Beautiful thing, man. One of the things I wanted to ask you about is, you can say you're in Ohio now. I know you're an Illinois guy through and through. What do we make of the Illinois cadet team only having one finalist? Is it just that our horses aren't there? Is it just comes in waves? Like what's going on?
Honestly, it's weird, right? Like with Illinois just finishing their season now, it's not the same as it was before because we would wrap our state tournament in February and Fargo's not until July. So for those 5 months back in the day, we were just focused on freestyle, winning duels and then going to win Fargo, mm-hmm. Right? Illinois just wrapped their season. And then there's also kids that are playing baseball right now or whatever it may be. It's just a weird thing. Right. And then I don't know how Fargo camp went in Illinois and how that went. So I saw the one finalist when I was looking at the recap this morning too. And I was like, oh, I don't know about that.
I feel like we need like a Sean Bourmet to get in there and just get everyone calling everyone, hey, let's get on the bus. We need you. Let's go.
Mikey Poeta seems to be building out a good staff down in Illinois. I think come over and take over Team Illinois. Got a little bit young. Let Poeta design all the swag too, right?
Could you imagine if Ed Ruth was Illinois' Fargo coach?
Yeah, why wouldn't he be? Right? Here's the thing. Morningstar and all the success Iowa has, Morningstar is their head coach, right?
How is this legal that college coaches can coach the Fargo team? I don't know if it is, but I like it.
Dude, don't ask that question. You're not asking the right question. How do we get Ed Ruth to be the Illinois coach? How do we get Jimmy Kennedy? I know he's still down in Illinois. How do we bring him back? Bro. Right? Like Kennedy back. David Taylor, Penn State has enough. Why don't you come join Ed Ruth, right? He married a why doesn't he come back, right? Why don't we just all the hammers and just see what happens?
I know. You're right about the Poeta, because the Fargo camp's at Illinois, so I'm sure Poeta was involved with that. But to me, it just seems like when Illinois was at its best, we had 2 guys that wanted to win bad. We had Brian Medlin and Mike Powell on the Greco side. They were doing their thing. And then on the freestyle side, it was Sean Bourmet. And he just refused to let Illinois not win those tournaments. I mean, Illinois won so many in a row.
Yeah, it's funny because I watched that happen because I was on overtime when Bourmet did that, and we literally we would have a training camp the week before at overtime leading up to the Illinois camps, but everybody would come there, so just extend the camp, but it mattered, right? Not saying that it doesn't matter now, but I'm just saying to your point, it's got to be passion. And that's where my head goes to Poeta, because I remember Cal Ferry and all those people that were there back in the day. There's so much coaching talent in Illinois that I hope ego gets out of the way and we just get back to winning.
Yeah.
Because reason one, with that coaching staff that's being assembled down in Champaign, that Illinois hammers leave. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of options out there and you'll lose one or two, but I would imagine Illinois is going to start keeping those. But how do you get to those kids better than getting them when they're a schoolboy, right? 14U, so they know, and they're just tied into the brand, right? And then 16U, right? If I was an Illinois coach, I would think we would get tied into that immediately. Because again, look at Iowa, the way that they do it with Siebel. But again, Morningstar is their head coach. Turns out they win. Turns out there's a team that are going to Iowa. And if they're not, they're going to Iowa State. And if they're not, they're going to Northern Iowa. There's not too many Iowa hammers that lead the state. And until it does that, which we could, there's no reason. Northwestern's a great school, right? Big Ten school. Plus, you're going to school in the city of Chicago, best city in the world, in my opinion. And then even if you want to go to Illinois, even bigger school, bigger campus, a little different down in Southern Illinois. But again, your head coach, Mikey Poeta, Jeremy Hunter, I feel he gets lost in the mix. He's been there forever. Don't forget, he's a national champ from Penn State.
I know.
And
think about the schools recruiting the Chicago team. So University of Wisconsin's closer than Illinois, University of Michigan closer than Illinois, or about the same. Iowa gets in there when they want to. Not as much Ohio State, but there's a lot of college coaches trying to get their hands on this Illinois talent. You just alluded to Ed Ruth. What was your reaction when you saw that Illinois had landed the great Ed Ruth?
Of course, when they announced, because I heard rumors for a while of who's going to be over the coach, and I
heard a different individual than Ed Ruth. I thought it was a man out of Ohio coming.
Yeah, no, I heard that as well. But at the end of the day, I think Illinois wrestling's better because of it. Right? There's a million different ways it could have went, and there's a lot of guys that would be a great fit for that. But I've not heard one person say a bad thing ever about Ed Ruth. Not one. It's all great. And again, he's still active. He's still in shape. I'm sure if he wanted to, he could still go compete at the highest level. But again, now you have two young, very successful. Very successful. It's hard to find more people more successful than Mike Poeta. But what I love is he went and found it and brought him in too, because he brings something different to the program, right? Again, it's not about ego, just how do we make Illinois the best? And I think Poeta was the right guy at the top, and bringing in Ruth, and I don't think he's done, right? And again, you can't forget Jeremy Hunter's there too, and he's been there forever. He's been there since I was a kid. I remember going to camps back in the day, and he would be there leading it, running it, right? And Coach Johnson, he still lives in Champaign, right? As does Heffernan. I would imagine they're not too far from the program. That is Illinois wrestling, those names right there. And it's a beautiful thing to see it, because of course I'm a bias. I love Wisconsin. Obviously I'm a Bourmet kid. I love Michigan, right? Bono, Reeder, I love to see them doing well. But again, I'm an Illinois boy. I defer to Champaign, and it's a beautiful thing because I know they're going to be successful. And I know what success has meant there in the past is not going to be the same as it will be once they get rocking. Because it's just going to be one kid, right? He's just going to have to go get that one kid that kicks it off, and it's the catalyst. And then boom, Illinois is back in the top 5.
Can't wait for it, man. So excited. I just think it's awesome that this offseason of college wrestling, there's been so much excitement around Coach Cole leaving Stanford. Not Mark Gray, Mike Gray building possibly one of the most impressive staffs I've ever seen at Cornell, with Gwiz, Kellen Russell. Are you kidding me? And everything just got, and then Illinois bringing in Ed Ruth, and it just got so much more exciting. This is the first year ever that Penn State legends are now coaching. Vincenzo at Stanford, Ed Ruth at Illinois. I was always wondering who would be the first.
Mark Hall's at Penn. Like, don't forget.
That's true. That's true.
Right? Like,
and BJ Futrell at Penn.
Right. And don't forget David McFadden. He's competing for the RTC. He's a stud, Virginia Tech boy. Right. And like, of course, the GOAT, let's not forget, JB went home. Right. So JB. So it's like, there's so much going on. And what I love about it all is just the youth. Right. Like, I think the biggest problem that we have, especially in the state of Ohio, is we have dinosaurs at the top. Right. It's just like these people that have been around the sport forever, that don't want it to change, that refuse to accept that it's just different now. Right. Like,
which of those animals voted no on the women's wrestling? Are you kidding me?
But that's my whole point, is in Ohio, it's dinosaur. Ohio just had a national champ, a women's national champ. It's her name slipping me right now. And it's a shame that though? Yeah. 16U cadet, female national champion. And again, she can't go wrestle for her high school team, although there's so much support for it here. But again, we just have dinosaurs. And not to be negative, because I'm not about that. But the youth that's coming in, like, they're not going to be able to continue to stall. Mm-hmm. As everybody that we name, like, they're all young and they're around, and they're going to be around for 20, 30, 40 years. And progress is not going to be able to continue to be delayed. It's not going to continue to get pushed off, because why any state doesn't sanction both, I'll never understand. No. Because why are you taking opportunities from these student athletes? And again, they're student athletes. Students come first. So again, if that helps that kid get to college, because now they can put that they're an athlete and they wrestled and they learn accountability, they learned a work ethic, they learned how to be a good teammate. Why would you tell a kid they can't do that? Why? Because she's a girl?
Right.
For what? Like, what's crazy is you've been sponsoring women's wrestling on the state level for so long. It's the same people in charge of that's in running the high school, and I would assume. So again, what's the argument of no?
And wouldn't you think that, women's wrestling became an Olympic sport in 2004? I would think that most Olympic sports were sports at the youth and high school level for decades before becoming an Olympic sport. But women's wrestling went the reverse order. Like, when women's wrestling was an Olympic sport in 2004, I probably would bet almost no states had sanctioned women's wrestling. And so that's kind of spurred it on. But here we are almost, 16 years later, 2021, and we're still having the conversation. Insane.
For me, so I grew up wrestling with Caitlin Chase, right? And like, you know Caitlin very well. But Caitlin, she wasn't a girl wrestler. She was just a wrestler, and she beat everybody, right? Like, I learned very on, like, okay, so she's a girl, but like, if I was her weight, she would have beat me when we were coming up for sure. She beat most of my friends. And if I remember correctly, she was 16 and at the Olympic trials, and like, we were 16 at cadets. Like, right. It would not. So it was always like, of course we support that, because how do we not support her? And then I watch what she does with the sport and how she helps grow. Like, when you see that firsthand, how do you tell someone like her no? And again, I've still never heard a rational argument against it, unless it's financial. And if it is our financial, okay, what's the number? What's the number you need? Okay, fine. Then let us go get that. And then once there should be no, like, don't sugarcoat it. Like, right? Like, if it's not money, don't hide behind money, because money's not a big issue. Money can be plenty of people that'll support this, but they just hide behind that as a code word for what they don't want to say. But again, it's because they're dinosaurs. But I firmly believe the youth is going to root that out, and we should have all states sanctioned with girls wrestling, because why wouldn't we?
Hopefully soon. Now, you're out in Ohio. Did Ohio win the 16U cadet duels?
So, Greco or freestyle?
Freestyle.
Yes.
So they did win that. How are they doing at Fargo right now?
So they were doing okay. I believe they got a couple of people in the finals. But it's weird though, because like, the way they split it, like everything's split. Like, you have the Greco and the freestyle, and like Greco's on their way now. Like, but like, I don't know. Ohio does it very differently than what Illinois. So this is my first time going through the whole Fargo system as part of Team Ohio, and they just do it very different out here.
It's interesting to see that. I also didn't know they moved Greco to the second half of the tournament. Is that just because they want the guys wrestling freestyle to be fresh and injury free?
Honestly, I don't know, because so they also have the Last Chance that's out there as well, and then the women's are competing now, the younger, competing first as well. So they were doing 16U and the women's. So I don't know if it's because it was freestyle and that made sense. I like that I don't know, but I do like the having freestyle first.
Yeah.
Just because I just remembered when I doubled up, Greco then freestyle. That's a long day, man.
And
That's a
coming
long.
back to make scratch weight for the freestyle tournament. Woo!
But like, there's so much in like the last chance qualifier being out there too. Just because you got like senior level athletes out there trying to make the team and things like that. So there's just so much good wrestling on top of the clinics that they have going out there. So being on the coaching side and just seeing all the resources that they have available to you through USA Wrestling was pretty cool.
Now let me ask you this: you were an All-American at Fargo, so you probably weren't as concerned with this as I was. But as soon as I went 1-2, I went right out to the expo hall to do the singlet trading. Are you still seeing the singlet trading and the t-shirt trading?
So I didn't, but I think it's different now because of social media, right? So because like I'll tell you what, like that was one of the things that we looked forward to after the fact of the tournament was getting out there and trying to get some singlets. But I think now with social media, kids can just like take pictures of what they have, put it up there. And like on Snapchat, they all like know where it's at. So definitely, I think it still happens. I think it just took a different form out here. But yeah, singlet trading and just gear trading is still happening. I actually had one of my kids trade his singlet and not have a red singlet. Shout out to Alex Taylor and that. But yeah, it's still very much happening.
He traded his singlet away and didn't have a red one.
Fact. He also took third place in the country.
God,
a very complicated kid, but he's one of my seventh graders. I love him to death. But
man, that's I shit you not. I mean, you know this as well I do. There must have been 40, 50 kids back in the day trading singlets. And I remember the Nevada had the dice on the butt. That was a hot singlet. And I had my mom out there working a deal. I mean, I picked up a Blair's t-shirt for a singlet trade. I mean, I'll never forget that marketplace was insane.
Dude, I remember, and shout out to Jordan Oliver, because I thought I was doing something until I watched his setup that he had going out there. My man was trading shoes, singlets, warm. He would be like, kids would want that Easton PA gear. He was one of the best I ever saw do it in the singlet swap game. So shout out to Jordan, doing big things out there, bud.
Thinking back, what was one of your favorite singlets, or just a singlet that people were going nuts for? I remember the jersey one where they had like the kind of stripe and then the jersey on the butt was a big one. What was some that you remember? So
two of the favorites that I have, I think it was like 06, was the Michigan singlets where they had the sunrise on them and the singlets faded, the red and blue ones. I remember those were some of my favorite. I remember there was one from Ohio. They had like this neon green, like in red combination, like the year that they had a bunch of studs in the finals. I think like my favorite singlet, and this is a throwback. I don't know if you'll remember this, but so it's my dog.
All good.
But the IKWF gold one year during
the yellow ones with the pink confetti.
Yeah.
Yes.
So still to this day, if I ever could find that singlet, I'd have it. But that's my all-time favorite singlet, the IKWF gold, the yellow and pink tie-dye ones.
Bro, one of my my teammates and good friends, Nick George, who was the state champ, IKWF 03, I'm guessing. He was on that team, and I was on the copper team. So I had the shitty singlets. I was on copper, but he was on gold, and were you on copper?
Yeah, no, I was on bronze. Wait, no, I was because we were below that.
We were below bronze. Yeah, it was gold, silver, bronze, copper, and then Jimmy Kennedy's dad had Team Zirconia, and they were way better.
Yeah. So the funny part about that is that was seventh grade year, because it was the year that I won.
Seventh grade
year, and so they had a senior state champ that they put over me because I was on novice. But then we wrestled IKWF gold, and I was the only kid to win in that duel. I pinned him. And then that ended up going to Iowa. But that was like the first national tournament, like dual team that I ever made, was that one.
You went on the AAU one to Iowa?
Yeah, so we went on the AAU one for Iowa, and that was kind of like my introduction to Team Illinois. And then the year after that is when I joined Team Overtime, because I joined overtime in 8th grade.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, dude, those were, I was just talking to someone. I don't know who it was. I think it was, it was Mark Gray, who we were talking about the rise of the dual team tournament. It's just exploded, you know? Did you ever go to like Virginia Beach or Disney duels?
So we used to go to Disney duels, right? I used to go down to Disney duels with Montini. So like I would be like one of the kids not on Montini that would go wrestle with them. But the one thing that I've noticed is that's different is like there's like all-star dual teams now, like right where they pull from all different kinds of states to make up a team, and those are like the best teams in the country. Like if you look at like Team Kong or Team United or things like that, and back then it would just be we were just team overtime, right? It was just kids of the same club, and granted we had hammers that were from all different places, but it was just our club, so that's how we competed. Or we were under Illinois, but now it's different. Like they have, like, you know, you're from Maryland, but you wrestle for a California team, but you're all wrestling in Vegas. So it's like, it's just different.
Right. It is different like that. And Team Kong is, I think one of the guys is out of New York, but they got guys from all over. So what are like the two big youth dual tournaments? Disney duels in Virginia Beach? Or is that?
Beach is like the big folk style one. Because buddies, shout out Gerard Garnett. Yeah, he coaches for Team Shut out of PA, but he lives in Delaware, right? But like that's right over the border. They pull kids from all over. So I think Virginia Beach is the big one. I know there's the Spartan duels down in Florida as well, but I think Disney duels and Virginia Beach are the two big folk style ones that I know of.
Yeah, Spartan, shout out Spartan Combat. They sponsored the show. They just started theirs this year. It was the first year. And so they're one of the only ones to incorporate beach wrestling along with it, which that's pretty exciting. They have all styles going on at that. So this was the first year. They'll have a lot more coming down the pike. What's your take on beach wrestling?
Oh, I love it. One, it just like lets me know that like maybe I can come back and be a beach wrestling guy. Like maybe that's the move, right? But like for me, it's another style, man. It's like the people that are like, oh, I only wrestle freestyle. You can't wrestle Greg. Why? Like, right? Like it's another style. And if it brings attention to the sport and it gives somebody an opportunity to compete, why are we against it? I'll never get why people don't support more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, and like also it's fun. You ever watch a match and see somebody get like thrown on the beach? It's awesome.
I love the simplicity of the rules too. I really like that. It's an initial, this is like the early years for beach wrestling. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see it as an Olympic sport. I've also heard, and the Greco lovers are going to kill me for saying this, that there's a chance that Greco and beach wrestling would merge. And it would be, but that would be a crushing blow to the Greco purists and most of the world. And I talk to a lot of people who aren't from the US, and all of them say Greco's the same in every country but the US. Like it's the exact same.
But like my whole question is, I just don't understand. Like you hear people talk about like, oh, like maybe Greco doesn't have a spot, but like God forbid you bring up like, all right, if like let's be like the rest of the world and just get rid of folk style, right? And wrestle freestyle and Greco, and that's the focus, right? The country would be better because of it. We would get more successful on the senior level. But like for whatever reason, it's like we just refuse as Americans to acknowledge we're the only ones that wrestle folk style. But we'll talk about replacing Greco, where literally Greco will never be replaced in the rest of the world.
Right.
Like it's as pure as it comes in the sport. But yeah, I don't know, man. Americans just have to be different.
I know, it's funny like that, right? We call everyone else calls it football. We call American football. You got the metric, the standard. It's like the folk style. Why do we always have to do something so different and unique? Amazingly, though, the U.S. is still one of the top teams in freestyle. And as we look ahead to the Olympics to wind this down, we're so close at this point. And just on Twitter yesterday, I saw a hashtag cancel the Olympics. I want to cancel that person because our athletes are already over there, bro. I'm seeing pictures. The training camp started. What are your thoughts on the Olympics?
I love it. I love it. Like it's the one thing that I don't like about Olympic wrestlings is they go to the smaller brackets, right? Like it doesn't make sense to me why the world bracket's bigger than the Olympic bracket, because again, it's just me. I just more opportunities to represent your country, but also it's a grind, right? Like there's plenty of people that are world caliber level that could go earn a world medal that didn't qualify. So to be one of the 16 to represent your country at the weights is just something special. And I'm excited because there's a lot of competition out there, man. I'm like, obviously 74. I want to know how that shakes out. Like, right? Like, I want to know, does Snyder get another shot at the Russian? If he does, what does he do with that? Like, right? Even Gilman, like, I would like to see Gilman, like, like everybody forgets, like, he was second in the world a couple years back,
He's been banged up a little bit. He's off everyone's radar. Did you see the Barstool sports books? He's plus 2,000.
Yeah, but like but also sports betting is so new that like there's good numbers to jump on. Like if
this
wrestling.
Is so exciting. I've never seen a real sports book make odds in Olympic wrestling. So you bet 100, Gilman wins, you win 1,000, 2,000.
Yeah, 1,000. But like but I also look at David Taylor. He's going to draw in unseeded, right? And you he's the best in the world. It's how do you say he's not? Right, and they're
draw in. Fucking David Taylor's gonna wrestle Yazdani first round, and Dake's gonna wrestle Sidakov first round.
I mean, good. I would love to see that matchup. Like, to be the best in the world, you got to beat everyone, right? You got to win 4 matches. So, like, for me, it's just the unknown is just so excited to me, and I'm just excited to see these dudes compete, like on a national scene where it's everybody's training, everybody's peaking at the right time. But also I like to see like these kids that are like wrestling at American colleges that are representing other countries.
Love it.
Right. I'd love to see it. I'm like, Bourmet's got 2 Olympians and neither wrestle for USA. I love it. Right.
And Amin is the flag bearer for his country. Like,
of course.
Not only is he he's carrying the flag in the opening ceremony. So I love that they're doing that.
I love it, and I'm excited about it. I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to see people compete, and I'm excited to learn about someone we have no idea about.
Yeah.
Like somebody that was unheralded that's going to go steal the show and go win an Olympic title. And like, that's forever. It's something special. And it's great to be able to show kids like, look, man, this is the pinnacle of the sport. Like you could be a 3-time world champion, but like, did you win an Olympic title? Like, oh, you didn't? Like, I don't know why it's viewed that way. Because honestly, if we're objective about it, a world title is much more difficult to win than an Olympic title. But the margin for error is just so much smaller because the cycle's 4 years.
I know.
If it goes wrong that day, like that's it, right? You got to wait another 4 years on it, and it's just something special, man. And I'm excited to see the women wrestle too. Like that's the whole thing.
Doubt, dude.
The biggest story, in my opinion, from the last Olympics was a women wrestling. Like, right? How do you defeat a 3-time Olympic champion trying to be a 4-time Olympic champion and not Olympics? Right? And like most people, like, I don't know how many people know that story or know how special it was that she won that weight and back again to do it again.
Back again. Everyone thought Helen was done. Like, I didn't think she was going to come back. And she had a barn burner with Jenna Burkett at the trials. And that was an emotional match. I can't tell you how excited I am for the women's team. I think Adeline and Tamra, gold medalists. Sarah Hildebrandt has really long odds on her through the Barstool Sports betting app, and I still think Sarah could make a run for it. There's a lot of solid women.
Yeah, but here's my question though: who at Barstool is setting these lines? Because like, I don't
know because they wouldn't put the odds on them though if they didn't know what they were doing, because there's too much risk of losing money. There's
a lot of bad lines in MMA, and in wrestling, it's so youthful to where this is like the first major sports book I've seen headlines on international wrestling, at least in this country.
First I've ever seen. Yeah, ever.
Also, it's great because that's growing the sport, because now somebody that only cares about gambling, I bet you put some money on this match, you're going to be watching the Olympics.
I've already had a couple of my buddies, my degenerate gambling friends, they've reached out and said, yo, how do we bet this Olympic wrestling? So exactly. I mean,
absolutely. I've had my friends.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I do the same. My friends are degenerate gamblers as well, and good. But again, that's more eyeballs to the sport.
100%.
So my friends that don't care about wrestling, that want to bet on it because they want to watch and make it more exciting, good. Because guess what? Now they're watching wrestling.
Yeah, I hope they do it for the NCAAs too. I mean, Barstool in general is just always innovating, pushing the envelope, and I don't even think they care. They just want people to use their betting app, so it works for me.
Because look at their states that they're getting into, and when they do, they just already it's perfect synergy. You already have college age people or people that are just age out, the young professionals that like gambling, that like sports. Boom, you go into a new thing, and now you have, and again with what they're doing with the Barstool athletes, I love to see it. I've never why kids couldn't make money off their likeness, but the university can. Never understood it. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. My only concern on it, and I sound like an old man at this point, is what does that mean to their financial aid, right? Like if a kid makes too much money through like their image and likeness, does that mean that he can't get that grant and now that grant's a loan? I don't know, right? I'm not smart enough to know how that pans out, but like that's my only concern. But I wouldn't let that stand in the way of a kid going.
I'm worried about these kids and their taxes, though. I'm with you. Like, I think the kids should definitely make money. In fact, I'm in talks with a couple of the hot NCAA stars to do some paid advertising for this podcast. But I'm like, man, is someone telling these kids that they got to do taxes now?
Yeah, well,
report all this shit.
9, right? I would imagine. So, do they know what that means? And if not, like, fine. You know, like one thing that I need to look into, and then like I can like what I do for a profession is I need to get some of my financial advisor friends to start putting together a fucking PowerPoint to say, hey, look, here's some trappings. Here's what, okay, so you just made $1,000. You didn't actually make $1,000. This is what it looks like, right? You got to put this away for taxes. You got to put this away for a rainy day. This should go into savings. Let's introduce you to an IRA, right? Like you're probably not going to max out a 401k when you're young, but like you can max out $6,000 in an IRA and you could start saving for your future, right? Like that would be something that like would be awesome, as if I can get some financial advisors to kind of say like, hey, just so you know, this is what the planning aspect of this looks like. Don't think that you have $1,000 every time you get $1,000.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean,
bucks. That's not what this looks like, right?
Great.
I didn't know that when I was 18. So, you know, there's
18. Like I didn't know that when I was 26. I don't think. Like, I didn't know. I'm 32 now, and I just now have a little bit of a handle on it, but certainly not at this age that these kids are at. But I think it's a great thing, and it's only gonna. That's something. There's just so much momentum right now. It's only gonna help wrestling to see some of these guys. What's also going to help wrestling to see the brands realize that wrestling is a big following. Like wrestling is the 4th largest attended NCAA event. And so there's going to be some real momentum behind this.
I hope people aren't just short-sighted and think about just the monetary side of it, right? Like there could be a great brand deal to where instead of you getting paid monthly, like you now get a meal prep system to where you're getting high quality meals delivered to you that like fuels your system, right? So now you don't have to worry about food and cooking. Right. Or maybe it's something that's like supplement companies, like something that's like easy wins. Yeah. And like one thing I want to put out here, because I know you clip this stuff and you put it out here. So I'm going to give a shout out to Wrestlers in Business, right? Because now my brain's working. I'm starting to think of this. So if there's any financial advisors, and I know we have a golf outing in Cleveland next month in Wrestling in Business that want to start talking about something we can put together for these athletes to help them better prepare to handle the tax situation of the name, image, and likeness. Please reach out to myself, DJ Bruce, DJ at dbtraincolumbus.com. Send me an email and get this started. So just a quick shout out there, just because again, like as we were talking about this, I think you got a good point. Like, right, like there's so many different implications of kids starting to see money from the NIL that they're not considering. And the last thing that we want to do is have a kid get a tax problem because he made $4,000.
Bro.
You know, and you setting aside 30% for taxes. You know, he's not.
No. So, and the last thing I want to see also is some wrestler take one of these like 1920s boxing contracts where they give away 10% of their lifetime earnings. Like we got to make sure that there's, you know, and I'm working with Joe DeSena, the CEO at Spartan. He's super passionate about wrestling. And in addition to Spartan Combat, he's putting together like some thought leaders on, hey, you know, any legal stuff, any contract stuff, you know, let's have like a best practices workshop for these NIL impacted athletes. Same thing with the financial advisors. But you just brought up something I want to close down with is Wrestlers in Business. Is this a network? Is this a LinkedIn group? What is this? I've heard about it.
So I'm new to it, right? So like now that like all of a sudden you get Amazon behind your name or JP Morgan behind your name and a lot of people reach out to you.
Yeah.
So I'm new to it. I'm usually pretty skeptical because I like, for me on the professional side of what I do, like if I don't know you, it's not for me. Right. But Wrestling in Business, a lot of people that I know and trust have reached out for me. It's as I know, it started off as a LinkedIn group, just wrestlers to just, hey, come and share place of like, here, we're all here. You can look and see who's a member. And if you have anywhere to network, it's a good place to start. But they do a lot of stuff in Cleveland, and I've been partnering with Beat the Streets a lot because shout out to Mike Powell and everything they're doing in Chicago. I know you with that, but I love Mike Powell, and he's kind of the one that plugged me into that. And so locally, I do a lot with Beat the Streets Cleveland, and they do a lot with Wrestlers in Business. So they have a golf outing here in August. We actually have our golf outing in Columbus, Ohio, August 27th. If you're interested, check that out. But when I go up there, I'm looking to learn more, right? Because like I do both, right? Like, yeah, I have a wrestling club, but yeah, I'm very active in business. I work at Amazon. I'm in finance. Like, I do that at a high level as well. So I know there's more that I can do, but I want to make sure that the time and energy I do put out there is well spent, and it's actually serving athletes rather than people looking to make money. Cause like, that's just, then if I was, I would have went and ran a coach for Colin Palmer, but that's not what I'm about, right? Like, I'm about actually helping people. And so for me, it's like learning more about what they're plugged into. And I know they do a lot with Cleveland State, and a shout out to Josh Moore and what they're doing up there. So there's a lot that they do, but I'm not as involved in as I would like to be. So I'm hoping as of the golf outing later next month, I'll be able to speak better to it.
It's perfect, man. And I'm with you. I think it's cool that there's, a group out there that even exists and that they're doing things, because think about how many kids wrestle who we don't even know about, who go into business and they're real successful there. So I think it's a great thing. If anyone listening is part of the Wrestlers in Business Network, shoot us a message on Instagram or email. I'd love to just learn a little bit more about it and see how we can help. DJ Bruce, it's been the fastest hour I've ever had in my life talking wrestling with you, and I could have you back on at any time. Any last words as we wind this down, my friend?
Yeah, man, it's actually a somber note. But we just our program's going to hit with some tragedy. So I just kind of want to get a shout out to a couple families that have been touched by tragedy lately, specifically in the Mount Vernon family. Owen Quinn, one of our wrestlers, 16, he's currently on life support, children. So we're just pulling for you. We're thinking about your family. Kip Nottinger, he's a kid that wrestled for me back in Virginia, Cave Spring. Unfortunately, he passed away in a car wreck. So I just want to send some love to his family, Chris. All my Cave Spring family, we're thinking about you guys. We love you. Obviously, a situation where it's never easy when you lose a kid, but just want to give a shout out to those families and just those communities. And as you know, wrestling's it's a tight knit community. So when tragedy hits, it's tough. So those are just two kids and two families I just want to call out and bring some attention to, and just let them know we're thinking about you guys and we love you. And if anything you can do to support these families, they need you now more than ever. So I appreciate the platform to just continue to speak their name and continue to make sure their legacy carries on.
For sure, man. Prayers to those families. Can't even imagine what they're going through. So I appreciate you giving some love to those folks. DJ Bruce, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much for coming on, my friend.
Appreciate you having me, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're great for the sport. I love to see it. And as you know, Illinois versus everybody, baby.
Let's do it. Take care, man. And that's the end of this episode of Wrestling Changed My Life. Thank you so much for tuning in. To watch the full video interview, go to YouTube, Wrestling Changed My Life. And that's it. We'll see you next time.